What is growth? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. What is growth? So, standard definition, there's basically three different conceptual definitions. One is development or maturity. Second one is a lower or simpler system becoming a higher, more complex system. And then the third one is just an increase in size. So we'll get into it. Excuse me. So the first idea of growth, of it being development or maturity, or coming into development and maturity, we see a lot of examples of that. Probably like one of the easiest ways to see that type of conceptual growth is with like flowers and fruiting trees. So you watch them go through a cycle of being planted, growing out of the ground. They're developing, they're maturing, and then with those examples, when they're mature, you know, like if it's an orange tree is mature, then it means it's fruiting, right? It's grown, has roots in the ground, you know, it's grown its trunk, its branches, it's set up its ecosystem, it's been going, it knows how to survive in the ecosystem, and then starts making fruits. And when the fruits are ripe, when the oranges are ripe and you pick them, that's growth. Like the process up to that, you know, is growth, and then it continues like in its lifespan. But it's reached maturity, and you know, maturity is a term that's used across many different areas of life. You know, people use it for some financial instruments come to maturity, right? It's common. You know, maturity is a concept that it implies experience. Like a prerequisite for maturity is experience, self-awareness, and usually it's some sort of idea that in terms of humans that it's a centered person who has enough experience, aka age, combined with self-awareness and wisdom, that they have an emotionally centered grasp of what's going on in life, and they can process it in the moment, and they have a certain amount of weight to them. And that sort of concept, that sort of insight does apply to these other forms of maturity. Like when you see a mature tree, it does give off this secure vibe because in it is a certain level of experience on this universal level. Like if you hang out with a redwood, there's a redwood behind me here, baby redwood. Like if you go to redwoods and you hang out with these trees, they're freaking thousands of years old, and you can feel their wisdom. There's just it just happens. And interestingly, that sort of leads to the next definition. So the next definition is a system going from like a lower, simpler system to a higher, more complex system. Well, we covered in my video, what is a system? The system is, you know, it's pieces of a complex whole. So a system is a whole that has interworking pieces. And so in this sense, when it goes from a lower, simpler system to a more complex one, in terms of terms of human maturity, as a spiritual insight, yeah, that is also that. Because really what you're saying is, first one from like being a simpler human, you know, oh, they're an infant, and then they're a toddler, and prepubescent, and adolescent, and juvenile, and then adolescent, and then now they're mature. And you see that really what you're saying is that they're becoming a more complex system of a person. And the same can be said of even with the tree, right? So a redwood grows a certain thing, gets in individual maturity, and then it finds that when it's at that level, as it's doing that, it learns how to be part of the forest of other trees, because its roots are growing out and connecting, communicating with the other trees, and then the branches get up there, and then it becomes part of the community of the trees. And it was only eligible for that when it reached a certain level of maturity, because within the maturity come functionalities. So if you don't have enough experience to gauge certain things or whatever, there's a whole bunch of skills that they're only unlocked when you've had enough experience in the certain areas to unlock them. And so maturity is kind of a just good overall concept that covers a lot of those things, right? So becoming a more complex system, and then when one simplifies becoming a complex system and keeps it simple, then it enables it to be a part in a cooperating part of other complex systems comprised of other, mature individuals and other things. So in that way, you sort of phase shift. You can phase shift out of a more juvenile adolescent reality, and then, okay, cool, now at this more mature one. And then that goes into the third definition, which is of growth, is increase in size. So as the system goes from being simpler to more complex, one of the things that happens in reality when a system becomes more complex is there becomes more synergy within the system. And so it starts to generate more power, more energy, more mass, more matter. And when you compound that with time, so you have a system getting more complex, starts generating energy, and then if it just has enough time, then basically time space starts to warp around it, and that's how matter is born, right? You just have electrical charge that's holding space on a pure level, goes from the light level and the metaphysical level, quantum, then I see it, then I see the molecule, then it's like, oh, a molecule, I'm collapsing out of a waveform into a particle, and then things go to it, and then it starts to go, and then the vibe comes in, and then time space source starts to wrap it up paper mache style, and then it grows. And because it's going from a simpler system to a more complex system, so there's synergy going through the constituent parts, and time space warps around it, right? And then it grows. So the increase in size is the obvious giveaway. So even if you're not seeing the insightful parts of the growth or maturity, when there's an increase in size and there's more matter, then that changes the reality. And so that's a level. So that type of growth can't be denied, or it doesn't require insight necessarily to see it. Now, you can still see it and not know what you're seeing, be blind to it, be like, oh, whatever. But it's there, and it's a good way for the reality to display growth. Keep in mind we're in this holographic reality. It's good that we know growth, like an increase in size and growth, is not necessarily. We know that it's a complex design of the universe, and we're mimicking it in our inner journeys. So in the spiritual sense of growth, that process seems to be universal, right? And now we're doing this philosophically, so intellectually, so the journey really is intellectual growth, right? All these steps, because Philosopher's Corner is a system. It started off simple, and now it's a more complex system. Right now we're 100 plus videos, and the way I've linked them in the when you get to the end of the video, and it gives you the choices, I've linked them like a neural network so that the topics flow properly. And I didn't know when I started it, but now that it's grown and it's become a complex system and it's matured and fully developed, now the synergy is happening. And it's exciting, because as the synergy happens, then I can start to feel the growth. And now it's attracting outside of it. Now it's sort of become its own little electron, its own nucleus. It got complex enough to do that. Now there's some time space starting to warp around it, right? And then the JOHNiVERSE is born. Because at the core of every universe is just that. Just some little molecule started going around, and then eventually that one, however that universe was born, created a sun, created its first celestial body in that region of the void, and then sent out all these replicating growth algorithms to all of its constituent parts that were matriculating in from the electrostatic plasmatic level, right? Just here you go. And that seems to be apparent in this universe, like Fibonacci sequences everywhere. Basically all the sacred geometry and the baseline like Fibonacci growth math sequences, they're found in everything. And like literally everything we zoom in on in this universe is always there. So it's clear that whatever source was that boosted out all the realities in this particular universe, multiverse, whatever we're nested in, dude, it sent out all these golden spiral growth instructions to everything. They're uniform and they're beautiful and they're ratios, and by putting them in ratios it makes them harmonic. So when you make them harmonic, they're not just there. That means the math and the visuals and the physicality is in harmonic resonance with the audio, with the vibratory reality, so that the vibrations and the sound are in harmony with the oscillation of the physical objects, because they're both working off of those same numbers, right? So you get like the XYZ 3D look at the grid of life, but you look at it from a higher dimension, you go, oh well, it's like a mushroom dimension. Like, let's look at this. Oh, okay, so that's how I would like, what would be like the formula that keeps them all in harmonics as they're being created in the reality. And we find them all the time. It's goal ratio and Fibonacci and all those other ones. So that's growth. And as with growth, it's open-ended, which, let's face it, when we look at creation in the universe, it's obvious that one of its prime directive is growth. And participating in that growth, especially consciously, seems to be one of the great gifts of being a human being, which is also part of growth. Like in philosophy, ascending perspective, step by step by step, is the process of growth. And I could definitely say, having spent a lot of my life as a philosopher, it works. It does work. You gotta go step by step. So growth, what is growth? Fully developing, maturity, a simpler system becoming a complex one, and any increase in size. And it has profound implications for the creation of the universe, and we can find growth anywhere we look in the universe, and it seems to be the primary function of the universe and creation. So, all right. Well, thanks God for creating all this. Love it. It's super fun down here, and have fun.